Hi. So day one of the crucial Oval Test is over, and India, after losing the toss for the fifth time in this series and being put into bat, have been reduced to 202 for 6. So if you just look at the scorecard, you would think that India had a bad day and England have a dominance over India. But if you have watched the match throughout the day and you have seen the pitch and the ground conditions, you would know that it has been a pretty good effort by India, and maybe 202 for 6 is not a below par total as it may suggest from the scorecard. It may be a really comfortable total, it may be a challenging total, it may be a tricky total, and if India manages to add another 50-60 runs for the last 4 wickets, which is very much a possibility because they have already added priceless 50 runs for the unbeaten 7th wicket after 6th wicket fell down for just 153 runs, then they can be really in a very threatening position in this test match, and England would be really anxious looking at that score, because unless the pitch changes, unless the ground condition changes, unless the cloud cover disappears, England may find it very tough to actually even surpass that 250-60 total with the kind of assistance it is giving to the seam bowlers. And remember, India has some really talented seamers in Siraj, Akashdeep and Prasidh Krishna. So in terms of capability, ability and skill, they are well capable of utilizing the conditions and doing much better than what England has done, because England has been really mediocre and pathetic with their bowling effort on a pitch which had 8 millimeter of grass and there was constant cloud cover throughout the day. This was just a kind of pitch which one saw at Perth in the beginning of the Border Gavaskar Trophy last year. This is also a kind of pitch which we frequently see at Cape Town in South Africa, where teams get bundled out for 130, 140, and this is the kind of pitch which we saw in the 3-match series between West Indies and Australia, just which concluded recently, where scoring 150 to 200 was also a challenging effort. So in this kind of pitch, it could have been very easily possible that India would have been dismissed or skittled out for 150 or 160, because it was that kind of a pitch. And especially England had been prepared, England had prepared themselves with 4 seamers to utilize the conditions, but 2 of the seamers were completely off color and they were mediocre, and they allowed India to escape and allowed the initiative to be somehow surrendered to India even after winning the toss on a perfect day for bowling. So throughout the day, Tong and Overton were so pathetic in terms of their control, line and length, and they were giving so many loose balls, so many wides, so many no balls, that there was not enough pressure to take wickets. It was a kind of pitch where you just have to come and pitch a ball at the particular line and length on every over, and then wickets should automatically follow. You didn't have to do much. But then Overton and Tong were either overworking or they had been completely raw and they were completely out of practice because of the long sabbatical from which they were coming, and that's where it was reflected in their performance, and they were absolutely indisciplined, absolutely having no control, and they gifted away free boundaries very frequently. No wonder Overton had a very poor bowling statistics or record of 17 overs for 66 runs and no wicket. That means more than 4 runs per over he considered without taking a single wicket on a pitch which was a paradise for seamers. And similarly, Tong bowled 2 brilliant balls to dismiss the 2 left-handers, and they were 2 dangerous left-handers, Sai Sudarshan and Jadeja. But then the rest of the balls were hardly on the line and length that was expected of him, and he gifted away a lot of free runs. So those 2 bowlers allowed India to escape and gave away the initiative, and that's how England finally could not dismiss India for 150, 160, which they should have on that kind of a pitch. And ultimately India ended up with 202 for 6, and Washington Sundar is looking very resolute, and Karun Nair, who has got a second lease of life because he was not supposed to be in this team. It was the obsession of team management to expand and extend the batting lineup. That's where they actually took Karun Nair and sacrificed a bowling all-rounder in Shardul Thakur, which was very bizarre, because when your only objective is to win this test match, because it's a must-win test match, you have to win it to draw level the series, and you have to dismiss England twice and take 20 wickets. Then the effort should be to strengthen your bowling and to have bowlers who can take 20 wickets. But here in the absence of Bumrah, who was rested, who is your best bowler, you should have tried to strengthen your bowling. But here the team management have gone with a bizarre team selection where they have dropped Shardul Thakur and depleted their bowling further and have taken Karun Nair as a specialist batter. So it would seem that as if India was ahead of the series, because the kind of defensive approach which was reflected in this kind of team selection is very, very strange. But somehow that option or that strategy has paid off so far in the batting department, because India drew Karun Nair's presence and drew the experience of Karun Nair, and they managed to get the advantage of it because Karun Nair played the best innings of the day and he is not out at 52, and he has got a second lease of life because he must have thought his career was over when Sai Sudarshan replaced him in the last test and played a good knock of 60 plus, and it seemed that Karun Nair would never get a chance at this later stage of his life after blowing up 6 opportunities in the first 3 tests. But then dramatically he got a recall in the 5th test, and he, on a very, very green top and most tough bowling conditions, has scored an unbeaten 50, and he has just given himself a second lease of life, and it seems his career will go on getting extended. So good luck to him, kudos to him, and he deserved the credit, and he has delivered, and he's still not out. And Washington Sundar, fresh after his century, after match saving innings at Manchester, has continued from where he had left. He is already 19 not out of 45 balls, so he looks again very comfortable. And if these two batters manage to stretch the innings by adding another 30-40 runs, then India can reach a total of 260. And if they reach a total of 260 on this kind of a pitch at Oval, they can really put England under real pressure. And it would be much more trouble for England because they have already, it seems, lost one key player for the rest of the test because of injury in the first day. Woakes, who is their major bowler, who is a frontline bowler and who is capable of exploiting these English conditions to the best possible way, and who has been very impressive in the first spell also. He injured his shoulder towards the later part of the day, and it looks a very nasty injury, and it seems that is the last of Woakes we have seen in this test match with the ball. That is for sure, it seems, unless there is a miracle happens tomorrow. And it also seems that the kind of injury he has, he may not be able to bat also much. So if he can't bat and he can't bowl, that means England are reduced to just 10 men, and they have to manage the entire test now with those 10 people, and his absence should be felt both in the batting and bowling. And if India manages to score 260, then England will be in real trouble because they would be down with one batter, and also in the second time around they won't have Woakes bowling and his experience. So a real bad blow to England. And coming back to India's innings, you can understand how bad England bowling has been, because in spite of such helpful conditions and in spite of the failures of Jaiswal, Rahul, which is a very rare thing in this series, and also Jadeja, they have not been able to dismiss India. And on the top of that, we had a gift from the best batter of the series, that is Shubman Gill, who just had a brain-fed moment, who just ran 6 strides when the ball was right in the hands of the bowler on his follow-through, and he could not just come back, and Atkinson executed a brilliant run out, and it was a complete wastage of a wicket, and that to Shubman Gill's wicket, who has scored almost nearly 800 runs and who has been breaking all sorts of records, and he looked so comfortable at 21, and he looked capable of scoring a big knock, and that could have really been a death knell for England. But in spite of his brain-fed and his stupid mistake where he just gifted away his wicket, in spite of the conditions, in spite of rare failures of Rahul and also continuous failure of Jaiswal, and then loss of crucial wicket of Jadeja and Sai Sudarshan, and India being reduced to 153 for 6, England have still not been able to take the initiative or take the advantage. It clearly shows what a wretched day they had with the bowling and what indiscipline they showed with their bowling, where they failed to exploit the conditions to the full, where they could have actually reduced India to 150, 160. And now it seems a tricky situation unless they undo the mistakes what they have done in the first session itself tomorrow and quickly dismiss India for maybe next 15-20 runs. They would be in trouble. They may be in serious trouble, and especially with Woakes out of the test match, and there is no Ben Stokes, and then there will be a lot of pressure on this English batting lineup, which is not known to play on tricky conditions and play long duration and grind it out. They are known to play baseball cricket, and whenever they have been asked to bat for 60 overs, they have failed in the fourth innings or the second innings. So it looks very dicey if Siraj, Akashdeep, and Prasidh Krishna bowl to their potential. England would be slightly having a sigh of relief that India with their Vijay team selection have not gone with another additional bowler, and they have instead gone with Karun Nair. Just imagine if they had four seamers, that would have been even much more threatening for England, because the bowlers would be fresh, and in case Siraj would be feeling the fatigue factor, or Prasidh Krishna would have been having one off day like how he had in the first test and was leaking runs, then there would be two more bowlers to sustain the pressure. But that liberty India doesn't have. India has just three seamers, and if Siraj feels the fatigue factor, then they have to depend only on these two seamers, because there is no other bowler available. The two spinners who have been there as additional bowlers, they are spinners, and on this pitch there is hardly anything for spinners to exploit. So maximum India can do is to use Jadeja and Washington Sundar to do a containing job. If they manage to take a few wickets, that will be bonus. But throughout the series, their bowling potency has been very low and has been very impressive. They have been more like containing bowlers. It is their batting brilliance which has kept them in the team, and that has prevented Kuldeep to come along, because you cannot have three spinners on a seaming pitch. So that's what has completely preempted India's ability to pick Kuldeep, because if they had to pick Kuldeep, then they would have to drop one of the spinners, which was not possible, because the two spinners are actually playing like specialist batters. So that means you could not play three spinners. That means you have to stay away from Kuldeep, and that means you could not take your match-winning bowler in the absence of Bumrah, who is actually Kuldeep is your only match-winning bowler in the absence of Bumrah. You could not take him, and in the pace department or seam department, you had to settle for only three seamers, because you could not have any space for a fourth seamer, because that would have depleted your batting. So in that obsession for batting depth, they have compromised on bowling. They are going with only three genuine wicket-taking bowlers in seam department, and just two spinners who can only be expected to do a containing job in this kind of a pitch. So if India manages to do that, then Karun Nair being there and giving the contribution with the runs and the score would be considered as a master stroke. But if India has to pay a price in the bowling and fails to dismiss England cheaply, then it would look that the additional runs they got through Karun Nair was not good enough to compromise a bowler, because that would be a much more costly problem for India while bowling, because you need 20 wickets to win the test, and you need to dismiss them cheaply. If you can't do, then you would feel the absence of the bowler. But then we can find it out tomorrow when India finishes its innings, and when England bats for the first time and shows what kind of capability they have on that kind of a pitch. And we also have to see how the pitch behaves, how the ground conditions and the environment and the atmosphere is. So for that we have to wait till tomorrow. Thank you.